My phone cast a glow across the darkened room. It was the evening before my housewarming, and I was lighting the final candle. I'd reserved the best seats for them, the ones with a flawless panoramic view of the Atlantic. I just wanted them to be proud. I reached for the phone, a text from my mom. "We'll have to pass. Your sister just moved too." That was the whole message, not a "we're so sorry," not a "we wish we could be there," just a statement of fact. My sister Chloe had moved to a new apartment, and as always, that took precedence. I stood there for a long moment, the phone's screen glowing in my palm. I glanced at the table I had so carefully set for them. Slowly, I moved through my new home. It was a $7 million cliff house, and I had designed every last inch of it myself. I extinguished the candles one by one until the house was plunged into darkness. A week later, HGTV aired the complete tour. Spaces of Empathy, they titled it. My house, my creation, my name. By the time the final credits rolled, my phone was vibrating so hard it was about to fall off the counter. Missed calls, Mom, Dad, Chloe. I watched their names flash across the screen. I let it vibrate. I didn't pick up, not just yet. Before we get into it, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below, letting me know where in the world you're watching from. When I was a child, Christmas morning was always Chloe's show. She was the favorite. This was an undeniable fact, like the sky being blue or the sun rising in the east. Chloe was radiant and boisterous and golden. I was reserved and slight and beige. I remember one specific Christmas. I must have been 9. I woke up at 5 a.m., not from a thrill of anticipation, but from the sound of Chloe already shrieking downstairs. "He came! He came!" I trudged down the stairs, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. The living room was bathed in the glow of the tree lights. Dad was in his usual armchair, the big video camera balanced on his shoulder, its little red light on. Mom was on the floor, cradling a mug of coffee, a wide smile on her face. "Look, Ava!" Chloe yelled, thrusting a massive, glittering doll in the air. "She actually talks!" I glanced under the tree. A mountain of presents was wrapped in gleaming gold paper. That was Chloe's territory. Then, tucked away to the side, almost near the fireplace, were 2 small presents. Their wrapping was the Sunday funnies. That was my territory. "Go ahead, Ava, open yours," Mom said, her gaze still fixed on Chloe. Dad kept the camera aimed squarely at my sister. I sat down and reached for the first box. It felt heavy. I tore away the comic strip paper. Inside was a set of history encyclopedias, a through D. "We'll get you the rest for your birthday," Dad remarked, without turning the camera. "Thank you," I whispered. Chloe was now shredding her way through the gold paper. "A bike! A blue bike! I got the bike!" Mom clapped her hands. "Oh, it's gorgeous, honey." I unwrapped my second gift. It was a package of notebooks, the standard black and white composition kind, and a box of pencils. "You enjoy writing things down," Mom noted, finally turning to look at me. She smiled, but it was a weary smile. A smile that seemed to say, "My job here is complete." "Thank you," I repeated. Later that afternoon, Chloe was outside, zipping up and down the block on her new blue bike. Dad was jogging alongside her, one hand on the handlebars, cheering her on. "You've got it, sweetheart. You're a natural." I was in my room. I opened the new encyclopedia. Aqueduct. I opened one of the notebooks. The page was stark white. It was empty. It was a blank, clean space, and it was the only thing that truly felt like it was mine. This was the rhythm of our life. My family was a tiny, brilliant solar system. Chloe was the sun. My parents were the planets, orbiting her, dependent on her light. And I was, what, a moon? A stray asteroid. I was simply present, I was quiet, and my role was to keep the peace. By the time I turned 12, I had mastered the unspoken rules. Rule number 1, Chloe's needs came first. If Chloe wanted to go to the shopping mall, the entire family went to the shopping mall. If I wanted to visit the library, I'd be told, "We can't make everyone bored just for you, Ava. Take your bike." Rule number 2, Chloe's emotions were a public affair. My emotions were a private matter. When Chloe failed a biology test, she would sob at the dinner table. Mom would gently rub her back. "It's okay, sweetheart. That teacher is just unfair." Dad would vow to have a discussion with the principal. The entire family would pause to mend Chloe's sadness. When I brought home a flawless report card, straight A's, Dad would give it a quick glance. "Well, of course you did. You're the smart one." It was phrased like a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a label. It meant my achievements didn't require celebration. They were just a normal day. I never wept at the dinner table. I went to my room, I wrote in my notebooks. Rule number 3, Chloe gets the main stage. I get the wings. Chloe joined the cheerleading squad. She wasn't particularly skilled, but she was energetic and had a dazzling smile. Her competitions were family holidays. Mom would buy new outfits. Dad would bring bouquets. They'd sit in the front row, whistling so loudly that everyone in the gymnasium would turn to stare. "That's our girl," Dad would bellow. That same year, I entered the district history fair. I dedicated 3 months in the garage to building a detailed model of a Roman aqueduct. I used clay and pebbles and bits of wood. I constructed it entirely by myself. I stayed up late every night, poring over books from the library. I won first place. I was awarded a big gold medal on a red ribbon. I was immensely proud. I walked the entire way home with the medal clutched in my hand. It was the first thing I had ever truly won. I arrived home. The TV was on. Dad was on the sofa watching a golf tournament. "Dad?" I said. "I won the history fair." I held out the medal. It was shiny and gold. He didn't look away from the screen. "That's nice, Ava." I waited. I thought he would look. That he would see the medal. That he would see me. The tournament cut to a commercial break. He still didn't look. "That's nice," he repeated. "Just don't stay up so late next time. You look exhausted." I stood there for what felt like an eternity. He never looked. The gold medal suddenly felt heavy. It felt foolish. I went to my room. I pinned the medal to the corkboard above my desk. I stared at it. Then I opened my notebook and wrote, "An accomplishment doesn't count if no one is there to witness it." That was the day I truly understood that my achievements weren't achievements. They were just static. They were an inconvenience. My late nights were a nuisance to him. The win itself was irrelevant. Chloe came home an hour later. She had failed her exam. She burst through the door, sobbing. "I'm so stupid," she cried. The TV clicked off. Dad was on his feet, his arms wrapped around her. "No, you're not, sweetheart. Not at all." Mom rushed in from the kitchen. "What's wrong? What happened?" For the next hour, the entire household revolved around Chloe, around her pain, around her failure. Her failure was a bigger event than my victory. I closed my bedroom door. I unpinned the gold medal from the wall. I tucked it into my desk drawer beneath the stack of notebooks. I didn't look at it again for a very long time. I learned how to be invisible. Invisibility maintained the peace. If I was quiet, if I made no demands, if I existed in the beige spaces, then the house remained calm. Chloe could be golden. Mom and Dad could circle her, and I could just exist. It was a lonely way to grow up, but it taught me how to live without needing anything from anyone else. And it taught me how to be very, very good at being alone. The summer I turned 13, Chloe went away to a month-long cheer camp. It was the first time in my life that the house had been quiet for more than an hour. The silence was unfamiliar. It was heavy. My footsteps seemed to echo on the hardwood floors. Mom and Dad didn't know what to do with themselves. Their son had vanished. They wandered through the house, picking things up and putting them down again. They spoke in hushed tones. The house felt like a museum. I felt a sense of restlessness, a sort of itch in my hands. I had all this space, all this quiet, and no idea what to do with it. My notebook suddenly felt too small. I went out the back door. The old shed stood at the far end of the yard. It was weathered. The paint was peeling. It smelled of damp earth, rust, and mown grass. Dad kept his tools in there, but he rarely used them. They were just there. In a back corner, concealed under a dusty tarp, was a stack of old wood, oak planks. They were rough and gray with age. Left behind by the previous homeowners, I had an idea. It wasn't even a fully formed idea. It was more of a feeling, a need to build something, a need to create something real, something I could touch, something that wasn't just words in a notebook or a gold medal in a drawer. I found an old, rusty handsaw. I dragged out the wood. It was heavy. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have a design. I just started cutting. My first cut was crooked. The saw blade got stuck in the grain. I pulled it free, my face flushing with frustration. I tried again. It was hard work. My arms were thin. I had no muscle. But I kept at it. Back and forth, back and forth. It took me an hour to make 4 cuts. They were all uneven. I found a box of nails and a hammer. I attempted to join 2 pieces. The nail bent. I struck my thumb. I let out a sharp, quick yelp. I stuck my thumb in my mouth, tasting metal and salt. I glanced back at the house. No one came. No one had heard me. No one was watching. A strange sensation washed over me. It was a good feeling. It was freedom. If no one was watching, then I couldn't fail. I could just do. I kept at it. For 3 solid days, I was in that shed from morning until dark. I sawed. I hammered. I sweated. Blisters formed on my hands. The blisters popped. I kept working. Slowly, a shape began to emerge. It was a table. It was the ugliest table I had ever seen. One leg was noticeably shorter than the others. The top was far from level. The wood was a patchwork of different shades. I stood it up. It wobbled. I felt that old, familiar coldness creep in. Stupid. It's crooked. You can't even do this right. I was about to kick it over. I was about to walk away. But then I pushed on it. It was crooked, yes. It was uneven, but it was strong. The nails were driven deep. The wood was solid. It stood on its own. I stared at it. I had made this with my own 2 hands, my raw, bleeding hands. A new feeling began to surface. It was quiet, but it was immense. It was pride. I wasn't finished. I found Dad's old electric sander. It was heavy. I plugged it in. It roared to life, a loud, angry machine. It intimidated me, but I held on tight. I started on the tabletop. The rough gray wood resisted. Sawdust filled the air. It got in my hair, my eyes, my mouth. My arms ached. They burned. My shoulders felt like they were on fire. I sanded for 2 more days. I sanded until my arms were numb. I sanded until I couldn't feel my fingers, and the wood began to transform. The gray, lifeless layer gave way. Underneath, a deep, beautiful honey color emerged, the color of oak. It was warm. It was smooth. I switched off the sander. I ran my hand across the top. It was as smooth as glass. I spent the last day sanding by hand, gently, softening every edge. When I was finished, it was still a crooked, uneven table, but it was beautiful. It was perfect. That evening, Dad came looking for me. "Ava, dinner." He opened the shed door. The light from the house sliced through the dusty air. "What in the world?" He stepped inside. He saw the table. I held my breath. I waited for him to tell me I'd made a mess. I waited for him to point out the wobbly legs. He circled it. He didn't say anything. He placed his hand on the top, just as I had. He ran his large, rough hand over the smooth wood. He gave it a push. It didn't wobble as much. I had braced the short leg with a small wedge of wood. "Huh," he said. He bent down, examining the joints. "You built this?" "Yes," I whispered. He looked at my hands. They were red and raw. "It's wobbly," he said. My stomach plummeted. "But it's strong," he added. He tapped the top. "Good wood. You finished it well." He looked at me. Really looked at me. "Good job, Ava." It wasn't a cheer. It wasn't a whistle. It wasn't a bouquet of flowers. It was 5 quiet words. And they were the most real, most solid thing anyone in my family had ever given me. Mom despised it. "Avalon, you are not bringing that thing into the house. It's covered in spiders." "It's not," I said. "It belongs in the shed." So it stayed in the shed, but the shed became my sanctuary. I brought my notebooks out. I did my homework on that table. I wrote my college application essays on that table. When I left for college, I packed my clothes, my books, and that table. My dad helped me load it into the U-Haul. He didn't say a word, but he secured it with extra straps. That table followed me everywhere. It was in my tiny dorm room. My roommate Maya asked, "What is that?" "I made it," I said. "It was in my first apartment, the one with the constantly dripping faucet. It was my dining table, my desk, my workbench. It was in the first small office I rented when I started my design firm, Pierce Design. Every plan, every dream, every sketch for every client started on that same oak top. It was ugly. It was scarred. It had coffee cup rings and a small burn mark from a soldering iron. But it was mine. It was the first thing I ever built. It was the first time I learned that I could make something strong out of things that were broken. 10 years passed. Then another 10. My design firm grew. Pierce Design was no longer just me and my crooked table. I had a proper office. I had a staff. I earned a reputation for a specific kind of design. People called it empathetic architecture. I didn't just design houses. I designed spaces for people to live in. I designed quiet nooks for loud families. I designed open kitchens for people who had always felt hidden away. I designed homes that listened. I understood what it felt like to exist in a space that didn't fit you. I had lived it. I knew how a room could make you feel small or invisible. So I did the opposite. I built houses that made you feel seen. The money followed. It was strange. I grew up with the constant refrain of, "We can't afford that," which usually meant Chloe needs new cheerleading uniforms. Suddenly, I could afford anything, but I still lived in a small apartment. I still had my ugly oak table. One day, a client fired me. They said my design was too subtle. They wanted something more ostentatious. I went home. I felt that old familiar chill, the gold medal in the drawer. I needed to build something, not for a client, for me. I spent a year searching for the right piece of land. I found it, a stretch of rock jutting out over the Atlantic Ocean. It was treacherous. The wind was relentless. The real estate agent warned me, "It's a magnificent view, but you'll be battling the elements every single day." "I know," I said. "I'll take it." I sold my apartment. I poured every dollar I had ever earned into that piece of rock. For the next 2 years, I designed. I sat at my oak table and I drew. I drew a house made of glass and steel and the same warm oak as my table. A house that didn't fight the elements but embraced them. I designed it so the ocean was a presence in every room. There was no hiding from it. The walls were glass. The light was absolute. It was a house that demanded honesty. It cost $7 million. It took everything I had. I was on the construction site every single day. I wore a hard hat. I learned the names of the entire crew. I signed every check. I approved every beam. My family didn't understand. "You're building where?" Mom asked over the phone. "It sounds so isolated. And all that glass. What about privacy, Avalon?" "It's private," I said. "There's no one for miles. Why don't you just buy a nice condo in the city, near Chloe? She found a new apartment, you know. It has a fitness center." "This is what I want, Mom." "Well, it sounds cold." When it was finished, it was breathtaking. It wasn't a house, it was a piece of art. It glowed on the cliffside like a beacon. The local news called it the new landmark. HGTV called me, asking to feature it in a special. It was my gold medal. But this time, it was 5,000 square feet. This time, the whole world could see it. I planned the housewarming. This was it. This was the moment. They would come. They would stand in this house that I had built. They would see the ocean. They would see the light. And they would finally see me. I didn't just send an invitation. I called them. "Dad, it's finished. The house is done." "Oh, good for you, Ava. How's the wind?" "It's fine, Dad. I'm having a small dinner the week after next, just for the family. I really want you to come." There was a pause. "Ava, that's a very long drive. And Chloe is moving, again. She'll need our help." My heart turned to ice. "Dad, she's 34 years old. She can hire movers. I built a house. I just want my family to see it." "We'll try, Ava, we'll try. No promises." I hung up. I told myself, they will come. They have to. I planned the dinner. I hired a private chef. I bought the expensive wine Mom preferred. I set the dining table. It was a massive, beautiful table made from a single slab of reclaimed wood. I saved them the best seats. The 2 chairs at the head of the table, facing the sunset. The view was perfect. It felt like you were floating above the water. This would fix it. This house would fix us. They would see what I had accomplished. They would be proud. The night before the dinner, I was walking through the house. It was flawless. The flowers were arranged. The candles were laid out. I was so nervous, my stomach was in knots. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. My hands were trembling as I opened it. "We'll have to pass. Your sister just moved too." I read the text. I read it 10 times. "We'll have to pass." Not, "We're so sorry." Not, "We're heartbroken." Not, "Can we please reschedule?" "We'll have to pass." As if it were a routine appointment. As if it were nothing. Your sister just moved too. She had moved from one apartment to another, 3 miles across town. She had a new couch. I had built a $7 million home on the edge of the ocean. And Chloe's couch won. I stood in my giant glass-walled living room. The sun was setting. The sky was ablaze in purple and orange. It was the most beautiful view in the world. And I was completely, utterly, and absolutely alone. I looked at the 2 empty chairs I had saved for them, the candles I had bought for them, the food I had ordered for them, and something inside me didn't break. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was a click. A tiny, cold, definite click, like a lock snapping into place. I had spent my entire life trying to win, trying to get the gold medal, trying to build something big enough or shiny enough or expensive enough that they would finally look up. finally see me. And they still didn't look. They would never look. The realization was devastating. It was a cold, empty, terrible feeling. But it was also true. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since I was 9 years old. I stopped trying to earn their love. I picked up my phone. I canceled the private chef. Then I walked through my house, and one by one I blew out all the candles. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my dark, empty house. The only light was from the moon reflecting on the water. The waves crashed against the cliffs below. They sounded loud, angry, but I just felt hollow. The housewarming was supposed to be tomorrow. The house was spotless. The flowers were perfect. Everything was ready for a party that was no longer happening. I went into my office. I switched on one small lamp. My old oak table was in the corner, holding my printer. I ran my hand over its top. It was still smooth, still solid. I pulled it out. I sat down. I found one of my old black and white composition notebooks, the kind Mom used to buy me for Christmas, the practical gift. I opened it to a clean page. I took a pen. I drew a line straight down the middle of the page. It was 2 a.m. The house was silent, except for the ocean. At the top of the left column, I wrote a heading. The inner circle. I wrote Mom, Dad, Chloe. I stared at the 3 names. For my entire life, those 3 names were the only ones on the guest list. I had spent all my energy, all my time, trying to get them to sit at my table. I had built a $7 million table, and they still declined. I looked at the right side of the page. It was blank. I thought for a long time. At the top of the right column, I wrote a new heading, The Outer Ring. I picked up my pen, and I started to write. The first name was easy, Grandma Nora, my mom's mother. She was loud, she smoked too much, she told off-color stories at dinner. She laughed with her entire body. My mother was always shushing her. Nora, please. Not at the table. Nora, you're giving the children ideas. My family had gradually pushed her away. They stopped inviting her to Thanksgiving. They said she was too much. She had sent me a card when I launched my business. There was a $20 bill inside. Go get 'em, Ava. Don't let them shush you. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. I wrote the next name. Cousin Leo, my dad's nephew. Leo didn't go to college. He became a carpenter. He worked with his hands. My dad hated it. He called him a waste of potential. He had so much promise, Dad would say. Now look at him, dirty fingernails. Leo was the one who had taught me how to use the sander. He had come over one day and seen me struggling in the shed. He didn't laugh. He just showed me how to hold it steady. He hadn't been invited to a family Christmas in a decade. My hand was moving faster now. The names were pouring out of me. Maya, my college roommate. The one who saw my ugly, crooked table and said, "Wow, you made that? That's incredible." She was a single mom now, working 2 jobs. My family referred to her as that girl with the baggage. Mom had met her once and later told me, "You should really find friends who are a little more stable, Avalon." Mr. Davies, my high school history teacher, the one who had laminated my gold medal for me so it wouldn't tarnish. "You're a builder, Avalon," he had said. "Don't ever stop building." I hadn't spoken to him since graduation. Maria and her husband, Luis. Maria cleaned my old office. Luis was a gardener. They were kind. They worked harder than anyone I knew. Maria was always telling me about her daughter, who dreamed of being an architect. Last year, I had given her daughter some of my old drawing pencils. Maria had cried. The list kept growing. My first boss, the foreman from the Cliff House construction site, the woman at the coffee shop who always smiled at me. I filled the whole page. I looked at the two lists. The left side, 3 people, my family, connected to me by blood. I had spent my life trying to impress them. The right side, 20 people, my non-family, connected to me by kindness, by respect. I had never tried to impress them. I had just been myself. My family saw my achievements as a competition. If I won, Chloe lost, or an inconvenience. My history project made me stay up too late. The people on the right side saw my work and had simply said, "Good job." I had been sending the invitation to the wrong address all along. I looked at the left list. Mom, Dad, Chloe, the empty chairs. I looked at the right list. Nora, Leo, Maya, Mr. Davies, all the people who had been told they were too much or not enough. The people who, like me, had been left in the shed. I picked up my pen. I put a single hard line through the names Mom, Dad, and Chloe. Then I underlined every single name on the right side. I underlined them 3 times. I wrote at the bottom of the page, "Everyone gets a seat." And that became the new plan. It was 3 a.m. I grabbed my phone. This wasn't a housewarming anymore. This was a rescue mission. I started making calls. I started sending texts. My first text was to Grandma Nora. "Hi, Grandma. I know it's late, but I'm having a dinner at my new house tomorrow night. It's very last minute, but I saved you the best seat. Can you come?" Her reply came 3 minutes later. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, baby girl." My next text was to Maya. "Change of plans. Dinner tomorrow, my place. Bring the kids. I'm ordering pizza for them." To Leo. "Long time no see. I need you to come to my new house tomorrow. I built something I want you to see." By 5 a.m., every person on the right side list had been invited. Every single one of them had said yes. I stood up from my crooked table. The sun was beginning to rise. The light was pouring into the house. I had a party to prepare for, a real one. I stood in my kitchen as the first rays of sun struck the ocean. It was 5 a.m. My phone lay on the counter, filled with messages of yes, and "we'll be there," and "are you serious?" My heart was pounding. I had just invited 20 people to my house for a dinner that was supposed to take place in 12 hours. The night before, I had felt empty. Now, I felt terrified. What was I doing? My house was a showcase. It was glass and steel and perfect angles. It wasn't a place for people. It wasn't a place for kids or store-bought pies or loud off-color stories. It was a stage I had built for an audience of 3. And that audience had refused to show up. Now I had a new audience, a real one. And I had no food, no plan, no idea what to do. I took a deep breath. The fear was real. But underneath it, something else was real too. It was that same feeling I'd had in the shed when I was 13, that no one is watching feeling, that freedom. I had just sent the most important invitations of my life. I couldn't back out now. "Okay, Ava," I whispered to the empty room. "You're a builder, so build." I went to my office. I didn't turn on the bright overhead lights. I just turned on the small lamp on my desk, the one that shone down on my old oak table. I unrolled the original blueprints for the villa's main floor. The blueprints looked wrong. They were full of clean lines and empty spaces. The dining area was designed for a long, formal, rectangular table. A table with 2 important chairs at the heads. The chairs I had saved for my parents. I looked at that drawing. I saw a long, empty table. I saw my whole life. Dad at one end, Mom at the other, Chloe in the middle, shining, and me somewhere off to the side, quiet. That was their layout. That was their structure. "Inclusion isn't an afterthought," I whispered, remembering the words I'd said to the HGTV producer. "It's structural." I had said those words about wide hallways and good lighting. I hadn't realized I was also talking about my family. I grabbed a red pen. I put a giant X through the formal dining area. This was my house. I could change the structure. I looked at the big open living room. It was huge. It was designed to make the ocean the star. Tonight, the people would be the star. I started sketching on a new piece of paper. No more long rectangular tables. A long table creates a hierarchy. A long table means the people on the ends can't talk to each other. I would do small, round tables, 4 or 5 of them, dotted around the room like islands. This way, everyone could talk. Everyone would be in a small, easy group. No, that was wrong too. That would break everyone up. I wanted them together. I had an idea. I sketched a new shape, not a rectangle, not a circle, a U shape. A huge U made of rented tables set up right in the middle of the great room. The opening of the U would face the glass wall. It would face the ocean. This way, everyone had a view. Everyone could see everyone else. There was no head. There was no foot. There was only the table, a table that was open, a table that had an invitation built into its very shape. I smiled. It was perfect. At 6 a.m., I was on the phone. First, the rental company. Yes, I need 6 8-foot tables and 25 chairs. No, not the fancy ones, just simple, wooden. And tablecloths, white. Then the florist, the one I had canceled. Hi, it's Avalon Pierce. I know. It's a change of plans. I need flowers, but nothing stiff. Can you just bring me buckets of wildflowers? Bright colors. Anything that looks like it was just picked. I want it to feel like a field. Then the food. The private chef was gone. I didn't want him. I didn't want tiny food on big plates. I wanted food. Real food. I thought about Grandma Nora, about Maya and her kids. I called a local Italian restaurant, a family-run place I loved. Hi, this is Avalon. I have a crazy request. I need to feed 25 people tonight. I don't want a set menu. I just want everything. Big trays of lasagna, a huge bowl of salad, piles of garlic bread. And can you make a few cheese pizzas? For the kids. The owner, Sophia, just laughed. It's a party, eh? We can do this. We'll bring it all. Don't you worry. Last, I called a bakery. I ordered 3 kinds of pie and a giant chocolate cake. By 9 a.m., my house was no longer a silent museum. It was buzzing. A truck from the rental company arrived. 2 men started setting up the tables in the U-shape I had drawn. The sound of their work echoed in the big room. It was a good sound. At 11 a.m., the florist arrived. He didn't bring stiff, perfect vases. He brought big metal buckets of flowers, daisies and lavender and yellow sunflowers. The house suddenly smelled like the earth. "Where do you want them, Ms. Pierce?" he asked. "Everywhere," I said, my voice happy. "Just everywhere." I spent the next hour walking around my house, placing small jars of bright, happy, imperfect flowers on every surface. It was the first time the house had ever looked joyful. At noon, I called Maya. "Hey," I said, "you're still coming, right?" "Of course," she said. Her voice was hesitant. "Ava, are you sure about the kids? Josh just learned how to throw and Becca is 2. I laughed. It was a real, deep laugh. "Maya, please. I want the noise. I want the chaos. I've had enough quiet to last a lifetime. Just come." "Okay," she said, her voice warming. "We're on our way." I called Leo. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Ava, I got your text. Are you sure you want me there? This new house. It sounds fancy. I don't have, a suit." My heart ached. "Leo, you're my cousin. You taught me how to use a sander. I don't care if you show up in your work boots. I just want you to be there. I want to show you the joints. I think you'll be impressed." There was a silence. "Yeah, okay, cuz. I'll be there. Don't laugh at my old truck." "I won't," I said. The deliveries kept coming. Cases of wine, bags of ice, the pizzas, the giant trays of lasagna. My kitchen, which was usually spotless and white, was overflowing. It smelled like garlic and tomatoes and chocolate. It smelled like a home. I looked at the house. It was a wonderful mess. There were flower petals on the floor. There was a box of toys I'd bought for Maya's kids in the corner. The tables were set with simple white plates, but the napkins were all different bright colors. It was perfect. It was the most beautiful my house had ever been. The night before, I had blown out the candles. I had walked through the dark, feeling the cold glass and the empty air. Now, I picked up a box of matches. I walked around the U-shaped table. I had put dozens of candles in the center, all different heights. I lit the first one. A small, warm flame flickered to life. I lit the next one, and the next. I wasn't pushing the dark away. I was inviting the light in. I was rebuilding. I wasn't just preparing a dinner. I was preparing a new family. I was building a new structure, one where everyone had a seat. I lit the last candle. The sun was beginning to set. The whole room was glowing. It was warm. I stood back and looked at the scene, the food, the flowers, the light. And for the first time in my perfect $7 million house, I felt rich. At sunset, I stood by the glass wall. The sky was on fire, all orange and purple, the same colors as the night before. But this time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like a show. It felt like the world was also preparing for the party. Then I saw them, headlights, a pair of them, winding up the long, steep driveway. Then another, and another. My heart did a strange jump. It wasn't the cold, anxious jump I always felt when my parents were about to arrive. This was warmth. It was excitement. I opened the front door. The sea air was cool. The first car was Maya's. It was an old, beat-up minivan. The door slid open and her two kids, Josh and Becca, spilled out. They were screaming with laughter. "No, I'm first!" Josh yelled and ran straight at me. He didn't slow down. He just crashed right into my legs, hugging me. He had something sticky on his hands. "Joshy!" Maya yelled, running after him. "Oh my God, Ava, I am so sorry. He just ate a fruit bar." I laughed. I just laughed and hugged him back. "He's fine. I'm fine." I looked at my expensive linen pants. They now had a perfect sticky handprint on them. "Welcome," I said. Maya looked up at the house, her mouth open. The light was pouring out of the glass walls. "Ava, this isn't a house. It's a spaceship. It's beautiful." "Come in," I said. "The pizza's already here." "Pizza!" Josh screamed and ran inside. Becca, her 2-year-old legs churning, toddled right after him. "Pizza! Pizza!" I watched them run into my perfect white-floored living room. I watched them press their sticky hands right on the glass wall. Wow, the ocean! I didn't feel a single bit of panic. I just felt relief. The silence was finally, truly broken. My house finally sounded alive. The next car was a beat-up old taxi. The door opened and my grandmother Nora got out. She was wearing a bright, sparkling purple top. She looked like a fabulous disco ball. She was holding a pie carrier. She stood at the bottom of the steps for a long time just looking. "My God, Avalon," she said, her voice raspy. "You really did it. You didn't just build a house, you built a palace." "Hi, Grandma," I said, walking down to help her. She grabbed my face with both her hands. Her rings were cold. She looked right into my eyes. "They told me you were building something. They said it was a silly glass box. They were fools." She hugged me hard. She smelled like a combination of expensive perfume and cigarettes. It was the best smell in the world. "I brought a pie," she said, holding up the carrier. "It's apple. The crust is store-bought. Don't you dare judge me." "I wouldn't dream of it," I said, taking her arm. We walked inside. She saw the kids. She saw the U-shaped table, glowing with candles. She saw the buckets of wildflowers. "Well, hell," she whispered, "this is a party." More cars were arriving. Leo pulled up in his old, loud truck. He got out, holding 2 bottles of wine, like they were fragile bombs. He was wearing his work boots, just like he said, but he had on a clean shirt. He looked so uncomfortable. He stood by his truck, looking at the other cars, at the house. He looked like he was going to turn around and leave. I walked right out to him. "Leo," he said, startled. "Hey, Ava, this place, wow. I feel like I should have wiped my feet on the driveway." "Stop it," I said, taking the wine from him. "You're the only person here who will appreciate the structural engineering. I want you to tell me what you think of the cantilevered deck." His eyes lit up. "You did a cantilever? Off this cliff? Is it a post-tension slab?" "Come and see," I said. I pulled him inside. Mr. Davies arrived, my old history teacher. He was gray-haired now, but he had the same kind, smart eyes. He just looked at me and shook his head. "Avalon Pierce, you were always my brightest student. I am so proud of you." I felt my eyes sting. It was so simple, so direct. Soon the house was full. It was loud. People were laughing. Maya's kids were running in circles. Leo was in a deep conversation with Luis, Maria's husband, about woodworking. Nora had found Mr. Davies and was telling him a loud, long story that was making him blush. Maria found me in the kitchen. "Ava, this food, it is a feast." She hugged me. "Thank you for inviting us." "Thank you for coming," I said. It was time. "Okay, everyone," I shouted. "Food, please just grab a plate. Eat." There was no formal seating. People just sat. Leo sat next to Maya. Grandma Nora sat next to Mr. Davies. The kids sat on the floor with their pizza. I found a seat right in the middle of the U. I wasn't at the head. I was just part of it. I watched. I watched as Leo made Maya laugh. I watched as Mr. Davies listened to Nora's story with a huge smile on his face. I watched Maria and Sophia, the restaurant owner, talk in rapid-fire Spanish. The room was warm. It wasn't just the candles. It was them. This was the dinner I was supposed to have. There were no speeches. There were no comparisons. No one was trying to impress anyone. No one was bragging about their new apartment or their new car. We were just eating, together. A thought drifted into my head. I looked at the 2 spots at the end of the U, the ones closest to the ocean. They were empty. I had, without thinking, set 2 extra places. The 2 places I had set for my parents the night before. I stared at them. The 2 empty chairs, the 2 plates, the 2 wine glasses. A month ago, those empty chairs would have destroyed me. They would have been a symbol of my failure, a sign that I was not enough. I looked at them. Then I looked around the table, at Maya, who was now feeding her daughter Becca a noodle, at Leo, who was showing my blueprints to Luis, at Nora, who was raising her glass in a toast. "To Avalon!" she yelled. "Who builds palaces? To Avalon!" Everyone echoed. I looked back at the empty chairs, and I felt nothing. No, that's not right. I felt relieved. I was relieved they weren't there. If they had been there, this night would not have happened. If they had been there, the night would have been about them, about their comfort, about their approval. My mother would have shushed Nora. My father would have looked at Leo's boots with disdain. Chloe would have been bored. Their absence was not a loss. Their absence was a gift. Their rejection had created this. Their empty chairs had finally made room for everyone else. I picked up my glass. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice thick. "Welcome to my home." The waves crashed outside, right on cue. It wasn't applause. It was just the world agreeing. The house was finally warm. It was finally full. And I didn't miss the empty chairs at all. A week passed. The party was over. The house was quiet again. But it was a new kind of quiet. Before, the silence in my house was heavy. It was the sound of emptiness. It was the sound of waiting. Now, the silence was peaceful. It was the sound of a house that had been filled. I would walk through the living room, and instead of seeing an empty space, I would remember Nora's laugh. I'd see the kitchen counter and remember the pizza boxes. I'd look at the glass wall and see the sticky handprints, which I hadn't cleaned off yet. I didn't want to. They were marks of life. The house felt settled. I felt settled. I had spent my entire life building things to get a reaction from 3 people. Now, I didn't care about their reaction. I had my own reaction. I had the reaction of 20 other people, and it was enough. On Tuesday night, the HGTV feature was scheduled to air. A few months ago, this had felt like the most important night of my life. It was the gold medal, but on a national scale. It was the moment my parents would finally see. Now it just felt like a TV show. I was nervous, but for a different reason. I wasn't nervous about what my family would think. I was nervous about what I would think. I was nervous about seeing my work, my soul, broadcast to strangers. I couldn't watch it alone. I called Grandma Nora. "Hey, do you want to come over? That silly TV show about the house is on tonight. We can order Chinese food." "Of course, baby girl," she said. "I'll bring the wine." That night, we sat on my comfortable sofa, not in the formal living room. We were in the small den, the only cozy room in the house. We had plates of lo mein on our laps. "It's starting," Nora said, pointing at the screen. And there it was, my house. The show opened with a huge, sweeping drone shot. The camera flew over the dark ocean, then rose up the cliff face. And then, my villa. It was lit from within. It looked exactly like I had designed it to, a glowing lantern on the edge of the world. "My God, Avalon," Nora whispered, putting her fork down. Is that really your house?" "That's it," I said, my stomach fluttering. The narrator's voice began. It was a smooth, professional voice. "On the coast of New England, one designer has built not just a home, but a statement. The Cliff House, designed by architect Avalon Pierce, is a marvel of engineering. But its true genius isn't in the steel or the glass, it's in the heart." The camera panned through the empty rooms, the perfect kitchen, the huge open living space, my office with my oak table sitting in the corner. "When designer Avalon Pierce built her oceanfront home," the narrator said, "she wanted to create a space where everyone had a seat at the same table." Then, my voice. They had interviewed me months ago, back when the house was just an empty shell. I remembered the producer asking me, "What's the point of this house? Why so much open space?" I had thought about my childhood home. I had thought about the small kitchen table. I had thought about Dad's armchair, the throne that no one else could sit in. I had thought about being sent to my room. And now, I heard my own voice on television. "Inclusion isn't an afterthought," my voice said. It sounded calmer than I felt. "It's structural. You can't just tell people they are equal. You have to build it. You have to create spaces where the light hits everyone the same way, where every chair has the same value, where there is no bad seat." The camera did a slow pan of the empty dining area, the one I had originally designed for my parents. "Pierce calls it empathetic architecture," the narrator continued. A home built not just to be looked at, but to be felt. The segment went on for 10 minutes. They showed the guest rooms, and I heard my voice again. I made every guest room the same size. There is no master. There is no bad room. When you are a guest here, you are equal. The show ended. The screen went to a commercial for floor cleaner. The room was silent. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. I looked at Nora. She was just staring at the blank screen. "Grandma?" She turned to me. Her eyes were wet. "You really said that?" she whispered. "What?" "Inclusion isn't an afterthought. It's structural." Yeah, I guess I did. I was just talking." She put her plate on the floor and took my hand. Her hand was old and bony and strong. "Oh, Avalon," she said. "You think you were talking about architecture? You think you were just talking about chairs?" I looked at her. "My God, child, you told the whole world. You told them your entire life story. You told them everything." I stared at her. "What? What do you mean?" "Your mother, Helen," she said, her voice soft. "She was always like that, from the time she was a little girl, so worried about what the neighbors thought, so worried about appearances. She was always trying to manage everyone, make sure everything looked perfect on the outside." She squeezed my hand. "And you were so quiet. You were easy to manage. You didn't make waves, so she just put you on a shelf. She didn't mean to be cruel. She was just distracted. Chloe was the storm. Chloe was loud and messy and demanding. And your mother, she spent her whole life chasing that storm. It was all she knew how to do." I felt the tears coming, the hot, stupid tears, the ones I had pushed down since I was 9 years old. It wasn't my fault," I whispered. "Oh, baby girl," she said, pulling me into a hug. "It was never your fault. You weren't unlovable. You were just quiet. And they didn't know how to listen to quiet." She held me. I was a 40-year-old woman crying in her multi-million-dollar house in the arms of her grandmother. "You're not quiet anymore, Avalon," she whispered, rubbing my back. "You just built a $7 million megaphone. You just told the whole world, and you told them without ever saying their names. The show wasn't the victory. This validation, this truth. It was structural. It was the frame of my entire life, and she had just shown it to me." Right then, as I was crying, my phone started to buzz. It was on the coffee table. The screen lit up. "Mom." It buzzed again and again. It was vibrating, a loud, angry sound on the wood. Nora and I both looked at it. A new text popped up. "Pick up the phone, Avalon." The buzzing stopped. Then it started again. "Dad." Then again. "Chloe." I stared at the screen. My family, my solar system, they were all trying to get in. Nora just looked at the phone. Then she looked at me. She smiled, a small, grim smile. "Let it wait," she said. I didn't move. I just watched it buzz. The phone buzzed all night. It was a digital assault, a panic. I didn't answer. Grandma Nora stayed the night. She slept in one of the equal guest rooms. I sat on the sofa for a long time, watching my phone light up. "Mom, Dad, Chloe, Mom." The texts were frantic. "Avalon, pick up. This is serious." "What did you do? You made us look like monsters. Call me now." It was a tantrum. It was Chloe failing a biology test. It was the entire family stopping everything to fix the feeling. But this time, it was their feeling. They weren't calling to congratulate me. They weren't calling to say, "Wow, Ava, the house is beautiful." They were calling to control the narrative. I felt cold, but not scared. I felt that click again, the one I'd felt when I got the text. Click, the lock falling into place. I finally turned the phone on, silent. I went to bed. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, listening to the ocean. The waves were calm. I was calm. I wasn't a child waiting for a scolding. I was a homeowner, listening to a storm outside. The next morning, I woke up. The sun was streaming in. The house was peaceful. I went to the kitchen. Nora was already there making coffee. She was wearing one of my expensive silk robes. She looked fantastic. "Morning, baby girl," she said, handing me a cup. "Big night." "They called all night," I said. "I know," she said, sipping her coffee. "I heard it buzzing. They're scared." "Good." I sat at the kitchen counter. I drank the hot, strong coffee. I felt the warmth of the sun on my face. I was ready. I picked up the phone. 12 missed calls, 27 texts. I didn't call them back. I just waited. I knew it wouldn't be long. At 9:04 a.m., the phone rang. "Mom." I looked at Nora. She nodded. "Put it on speaker." I pressed the green button. I pressed speaker. I put the phone on the white marble counter. "Hello, Mom." Silence. Then her voice. It was not her normal voice. It was high and tight and sweet. It was her talking to the neighbor's voice. It was her fake voice. "Avalon, finally! We've been calling all night. We were so worried. What on earth was that show?" "It was a show about the house, Mom," I said. My voice was low, calm. "Well, yes, but the way they talked, the things you said, spaces of empathy. Everyone has a seat. They made it sound, Avalon, they made it sound like we left you out, like we weren't invited to your house. That's just not true. You know that's not true." I didn't say anything. I just took a sip of my coffee. The silence was loud. "We just couldn't make it," she continued, her voice getting higher. "Chloe needed us. You know how she is. She just moved. It was a very stressful time for her." I waited. I let her words hang in the air. I let them float around my beautiful, sunny kitchen. "Ava, did you hear me?" Her voice was getting impatient. The sweetness was fading. "You should call that station. You really should. You should tell them to correct that. It's slander. It makes us look terrible." I was about to speak. I was about to say, "But you were invited. You chose not to come." But I didn't have to. Grandma Nora spoke. Her voice was calm and clear and cut through the kitchen like a knife. "It is true, Helen." My mother gasped. It was a sharp, tiny sound. Who is that? Is that Mother? What are you doing there?" "I'm having coffee with my granddaughter," Nora said, her voice like steel. And I said what she is too polite to say. "It is true. You have been leaving her out since she was a child. The gold-wrapped presents, the cheerleading competitions. You did it to me too. You pushed out everyone who didn't fit your perfect little picture. This is unbelievable." My mother's voice was shaking now. All the fake sweetness was gone. "I am being attacked. In my own... You are both overreacting. It was a stupid TV show. You're twisting everything." "You're being dramatic," I whispered. It was the same thing they always said to me. Nora was not finished. Her voice was so calm it was brutal. "No, Helen," she said. "She's not twisting anything. She's not being dramatic. She's just remembering. And now, thanks to that TV show, everyone else is remembering too." There was a long, terrible silence on the other end of the line. I could hear my mother breathing. It was a shaky, angry breath. I could picture her in her kitchen, gripping the phone, her face red, lost. I have to go," she sputtered. "Your father will be hearing about this. This is a betrayal, Avalon, after everything we've done for you." Click. She hung up. The kitchen was silent again. Just the sound of the ocean, far away. I looked at Nora. My heart was pounding. I had done it. I had survived. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't cried. I hadn't defended myself. I didn't have to. Nora picked up her coffee cup. She raised it in a toast. "Well," she said with a small, dry smile, "that's that." I felt light. For my entire life, I had been a victim of their words. "You're too quiet, you're overreacting, Chloe needs us." Now I was a victim of their silence. She had hung up on me. She had no words, because for the first time, the truth was on the table, and the truth was not on her side. I had not said a single mean word. I hadn't accused them of anything. I had just let my grandmother speak. I had just been quiet. But this was a new kind of quiet. It was not the quiet of a beige, invisible girl. It was the quiet of power, the quiet of knowing, the quiet of a woman who owned the house, who owned the phone, and who owned the truth. I picked up my phone. I looked at the missed calls from Dad and Chloe. I deleted them. 2 nights passed. The phone was silent. The angry buzzing had stopped. It was as if my family had been unplugged. I knew this silence. This was the punishment silence. This was the "we are ignoring you until you apologize" silence. It had worked my entire life. I would get so lonely, so desperate for any connection, that I would go to them. I would say, I'm sorry I won the history fair. I'm sorry I made you feel bad. I'm sorry for existing." I walked through my house. It was beautiful. It was mine. I didn't feel lonely. I felt still. I felt the calm after the storm. I was not going to apologize, not this time, but I wasn't finished. This was not about revenge. Revenge is a hot, loud, angry thing. This was about balance. Revenge is about burning their house down. Balance is about inviting them into my house, under my rules. I knew what I had to do. I picked up the phone and called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Her hello was cold. "Mom," I said, my voice simple, "I'm making dinner tonight. I want you, Dad, and Chloe to come." Silence. "Why?" she asked, her voice suspicious. "Because it's time," I said. "Grandma Nora will be here. No one else, no cameras, no show, just family. Please come." I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I stated it as a fact. There was a long pause. I heard her cover the phone, her voice muffled. "She wants us to come to dinner." She came back on the line. "Fine. 7 o'clock. Click." I hung up. I had my plan. This was the final step. I did not go to the big, beautiful dining area. I did not go to the U-shaped table, still full of happy memories. I went to my office. I looked at my old, crooked, ugly oak table, the one I built when I was 13, the one that had followed me everywhere, the one that was scarred and burned and covered in coffee rings. It was small. It was humble. It was the strongest thing I owned. I put my hands on it. I pushed it. It was heavy. I slid it out of my office, scraping it across the perfect, expensive white floors. I didn't care. I pushed it into the exact center of my giant $7 million living room. It looked ridiculous. It was tiny. It was scarred. It was surrounded by glass and steel and priceless ocean views. It was imperfect. I went to the kitchen. I found 5 simple chairs, not the matching expensive dining chairs, just chairs. I put one at one end, one at the other, 2 on one side and one for me. 5 chairs. Mom, Dad, Chloe, Nora, me. I didn't call a caterer. I didn't hire a chef. I went to the store. I bought a chicken. I bought potatoes and carrots and onions. I bought a simple apple pie. I spent the afternoon cooking. I made a roast chicken, the kind Mom used to make on Sundays before Chloe's competitions took over our weekends. The house filled with the smell of rosemary and thyme. It was a simple, honest smell. At 6 p.m., Nora arrived. She walked in. She saw the tiny, crooked table in the middle of the grand room. She stopped. She looked at the table. She looked at me. She didn't say a word. She just smiled. She knew exactly what I was doing. She sat down in one of the chairs as if it were a throne. At 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened it. There they were, my family, Mom, Dad, Chloe. They were standing together, a united front. They looked nervous. They looked angry. They were braced for a fight. "Come in," I said. They walked inside. They walked into the huge room. Their eyes went wide. They were expecting, I don't know, an ambush, lawyers, a TV crew. Then they saw it. The small, ugly table. The 5 simple chairs. Lily frowned. "What is this? Why are we eating here? This room is huge." Mom was just confused. "Avalon, what is this?" But Dad was silent. He walked slowly toward the table. He stopped. He just stared at it. "It's your table," he whispered. He reached out and put his big hand on the oak top. "From the shed." "Yes," I said, "it is." He looked at me. He really looked at me. And in his eyes, I saw recognition. He remembered the girl with the raw hands. He remembered the solid wood. "Please," I said, "sit down." It was the most awkward dinner of my life. The sound of forks on plates was like thunder. The ocean crashed outside. No one apologized. I knew they wouldn't. An apology would mean they had to admit they were wrong, and my family was not built for that. Chloe talked about her new apartment. Her sofa was the wrong color. The fitness center was too crowded. Mom complained about the drive. She complained about the salt in the air. Dad just ate. He was quiet. He kept looking at the table, and I let them talk. I was not the 12-year-old girl dying for a crumb of praise. I was not the 9-year-old waiting for a gold-wrapped box. I was the 40-year-old woman who owned the room. I was the host. I served them chicken. I poured their wine. I was not begging them for a seat. I had given them a seat. At my table. The table I built. The power was different. The structure was different. They were in my house. They were playing by my rules. And my rules were just quiet, honest presence. The dinner ended. It wasn't warm. It wasn't a happy family reunion. But it was real. It was the most honest meal we had ever shared. They stood up to leave. Chloe was already on her phone, texting. She walked out the door without saying goodbye. Dad stopped. He nodded at me. "It's quite a house, Avalon. The chicken was good." "Thanks, Dad." He left. Now it was just me and Mom. Nora was still at the table watching, a silent witness. Mom stood by the old oak table. She looked at the scars, the burn mark, the water rings. She did what Dad had done. She put her hand on the wood. She looked at me. Her eyes weren't angry anymore. They weren't defensive. They were just tired, and maybe a little bit in awe. "You built this well, Ava," she whispered. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "I love you." She didn't say, "I was wrong." She said, "You built this well." She recognized the work. She recognized the build. And that was it. I closed the door after her. I stood alone in my giant glass-walled living room. I looked at the small, crooked table. It wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. They didn't fall on their knees and beg for my forgiveness. But they came. They saw. They sat at my first, truest creation. And my mother, for one single, honest second, had recognized me. It was enough. Justice doesn't always roar. It's not always a courtroom or a big fight or a dramatic speech. Sometimes justice is just a calm, quiet room. Sometimes it's a house you built on the edge of the world. And sometimes it's a crooked, scarred, and perfectly strong table that you built all by yourself.